The human colony on planet Arcturus 7 had been quiet for 3 months when the Valkyrie warship descended through the violet clouds like a silver blade cutting through silk. Nobody expected visitors, and certainly not from the most feared warrior. Race in the known galaxy. Jake Morris stood at the observation deck of the research station watching the alien vessel land with impossible grace on the landing pad below. His coffee grew cold in his hands as he stared at the sleek metallic hull that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. The Valkyrie were legendary throughout human space. Stories spoke of 7-foot-tall warriors with strength that could bend steel and reflexes faster than human eyes could follow. Their empire stretched across 12 star systems, and their military prowess was unmatched. What Jake had not expected was that they would be interested in a small mining and research outpost on the edge of explored space. The station commander rushed past him, barking orders into her communicator. Director Amy Chen looked more nervous than Jake had ever seen her. Within minutes, the entire human staff of 40 people gathered in the main hall. Everyone whispered theories about why the Valkyrie had come. Some feared invasion. Others hoped for trade agreements. Nobody guessed the truth. The airlock hissed open and she walked in. Her name was Kira, and she moved like liquid death. She stood easily 6 feet and 8 inches tall, with skin that held a faint blue luminescence under the station lights. Her hair was long and silver, falling in a thick braid down her back. But it was her eyes that caught everyone's attention. They glowed with an amber light that seemed to pierce right through anyone she looked at. She wore armor that looked both ceremonial and functional, with intricate patterns etched into the dark metal plates. Behind her came 4 more, Valkyrie warriors, all female and all carrying themselves with the same predatory grace. They scanned the crowd of humans with obvious interest and something else Jake could not quite identify. Director Chen stepped forward with her diplomatic smile firmly in place. She began the formal greeting in the common trade language that most species used for communication. Kira listened politely, then responded in perfect English with only the slightest accent that made her voice sound musical. The reason for their visit was explained quickly. The Valkyrie were conducting what they called a selection tour. Every 7 years, their females entered a phase where they needed to choose a mate. Unlike many species, this was not merely biological but deeply cultural and spiritual for them. Valkyrie females were the dominant gender in their society. They chose their partners based on criteria that humans barely understood. Strength mattered, but so did intelligence, adaptability, and something they called soul resonance. What made this selection tour unusual was that Kira and her group had decided to look beyond their own species. Centuries of genetic optimization had made Valkyrie males powerful but predictable. These females wanted something different. They wanted mates who could surprise them and challenge them and bring new genetic diversity to their bloodlines. They had studied dozens of species and narrowed their search to humans. The humans in the station looked at each other with confusion and no small amount of fear. The idea of being evaluated like livestock did not sit well with most of them. But Kira explained further. Any human was free to decline. The Valkyrie would not force anyone. However, those who agreed to be considered would undergo tests of body, mind, and spirit. If chosen, the human would become a full member of Valkyrie society, with all the rights and honors that entailed. Their children would be recognized as legitimate heirs. The human would want for nothing, and would be treated as an equal partner despite the obvious physical differences. Director Chen called for a break so the humans could discuss this privately. The room erupted into heated debate. Some people thought it was an honor. Others saw it as degrading. A few pointed out the potential benefits of creating a strong alliance with the Valkyrie through personal bonds. Jake stayed quiet through most of it, thinking about his own situation. He had come to Arcturus 7 to escape a failed relationship back on Earth. The frontier offered distance and purpose. He was a xenobiologist studying the strange ecosystem of this world, but lately he had felt adrift. The work was interesting but lonely. Most of the station staff were either much older or already paired up. He had started to wonder if he would spend the rest of his assignment alone. When the meeting reconvened, Director Chen asked who would volunteer for consideration. The room fell silent. Finally, 6 people raised their hands. Jake was one of them. The test began the next day. The Valkyrie had brought equipment that seemed like a blend of technology and mysticism. They measured physical capabilities with devices that pushed the human volunteers to their limits. Jake discovered muscles he did not know he had as he completed obstacle courses that seemed designed for beings much larger than humans. The Velkari watched everything with those glowing eyes, taking notes in their own language. The mental tests were harder, puzzles that shifted and changed as you tried to solve them, scenarios that had no right answer, only choices that revealed character. Jake found himself in simulated situations where he had to make impossible decisions. Save a ship full of strangers or rescue a friend. Reveal a dangerous truth or maintain a comfortable lie. Each choice was recorded and analyzed. The final test was the strangest. Each volunteer sat alone in a darkened room with one of the Velkari warriors. They did not speak. The warrior simply looked at the human for what felt like hours. Jake sat across from Kira herself, feeling like she could see into his soul. Her amber eyes never blinked as she studied him. He tried to stay calm to show no fear, but he also tried to remain honest and open. He had the strange sense that any attempt to hide who he really was would be immediately detected. After 3 days, the testing concluded. The Velkari gathered the volunteers in the same main hall where this had all begun. Kira stepped forward and began to speak. She talked about the qualities they had observed. Courage, yes, but also kindness. Strength in body, but flexibility in mind. The ability to face fear without being controlled by it. The wisdom to know that being strong did not mean being cruel. Then she pointed directly at Jake. His heart stopped for a moment as every eye in the room turned to him. Kira walked toward him with slow, deliberate steps. When she stood before him, she was close enough that he had to tilt his head back to meet her gaze. She spoke in that musical voice that somehow carried to every corner of the room. She had chosen him. The other Velkari warriors made their choices as well, selecting 2 other humans from the volunteers. But Jake barely heard any of it. His mind was racing with 1,000 thoughts. Kira seemed to sense his confusion because she knelt down, bringing her face level with his. Up close, he could see flecks of gold in her amber eyes. She told him that he had 7 days to make his final decision. If he agreed, he would leave with them when their ship departed. If he declined, they would respect his choice and never contact him again. The next week passed in a blur. Jake went through his daily work routine, but his mind was elsewhere. The other humans had mixed reactions to his selection. Some congratulated him like he had won some prize. Others looked at him with pity as if he were being led to sacrifice. Director Chen was professionally supportive but clearly worried about losing a skilled member of her team. Kira sought him out each day. They walked through the station corridors or sat in the observation deck, looking out at the alien landscape. She answered his questions about Velkari culture and society. She explained that while she was the dominant partner in their relationship, that did not mean he would be property or servant. Velkari bonds were partnerships built on mutual respect. She would protect him and provide for him, but she also expected him to challenge her and grow alongside her. Jake asked why she had chosen him specifically. There had been others who were stronger or smarter by certain measures. Kira smiled for the first time, showing teeth that were slightly sharper than human normal. She told him that she had seen something in him during that final test when they sat in silence. She called it a quiet strength. He did not try to prove himself or perform for her approval. He simply existed honestly, and that honesty revealed a depth of character she found compelling. He faced uncertainty with curiosity rather than fear, and that was rare. On the 6th day, Jake made his decision. He found Kira in the training room where she was sparring with one of her warriors. The 2 Velkari moved so fast they were almost blurs of motion. When they noticed him watching, they stopped immediately. Kira approached him and waited. He told her yes. Something changed in her expression. The cool assessment in her eyes was replaced with what he could only describe as joy. She reached out and placed one large hand on his shoulder. Her touch was surprisingly gentle despite the obvious strength behind it. She told him he had honored her with his trust, and she would spend the rest of her life proving worthy of it. The final day arrived too quickly. Jake packed what few possessions he wanted to bring. Most of his things would stay behind for whoever replaced him at the station. Director Chen organized a farewell gathering that was equal parts celebration and wake. People gave speeches and shared memories. Some cried. A few admitted they were jealous of his